I'm Laura, and I want to welcome you to Adventures in Creating, the place where I take you on an adventure to create something hopefully awesome. Today we are going to be making a candy wreath in celebration of the winter season. It's that time of year where we're all putting out our wreaths and we're getting excited for the holidays that are coming up. So we are going to be making a wreath for the season. And this is fun because it's made out of candy. It's a great activity because I purchased all the ingredients, supplies for this at the dollar store, which is great. Low cost, yay. And this is something you can do either by yourself or with your children or your family around you because it is very simple, which is excellent. I did use probably close to about 3 pounds of candy for this, so I used a large wreath frame. You could, of course, use a smaller wreath form to make this, and then you wouldn't need as much. Totally up to you. I will also put in a quick announcement here. The next few weeks leading up to and through the New Year's, I probably will not upload any new videos. Reason being, I am in the process of moving, which is exciting for me, but that throws everything off, including packing up all my crafting supplies, as well as I've been a little bit under the weather the last few weeks. So I'm getting this one out to you because I already did this and I was excited to share it with you. A very fun time. And we're going to go from there. So without further ado, please join me as we make our fabulous candy wreath. Here before us, we have the supplies we need for the activity today. We are making a candy wreath. This is a very whimsical wreath that I love because it's perfect for the holiday time. It adds that sweetness, it adds that fun style, and it's great for children of all ages. You will need something to take the shape of your wreath. Now I picked this up as a wreath form from the Dollar Tree. So you could pick one of these up, or if you're in a real bind, you could even use a coat hanger, a metal one, and stretch it out to be the shape you want. You're gonna want candy, specifically candy that is wrapped in, hold this up so you can see, a wrapper like this with 2 ends. I did unfortunately get some candy that's in wrappers, but not the 2 ends like this, and it's workable, but not great. Reason being is you are going to be tying string, ribbon, yarn, whatever you have from the candy to the wreath form, and we are just filling this up full of candy. I'm not sure exactly how many bags of candy I'm going to use. I will tell you at the end of the video, but you will need some candy, a few bags for sure. I also have here, I am using red and green and white yarn because I happen to have yarn on hand. You could use ribbon, you could use string, it could be any color you want. It could be neon purple. But because I'm making this for the holiday season, the Christmas Yuletide time, I'm going to be using red and green. You're also going to want a pair of scissors. Why? To cut your string. And those are all the supplies you need to get started. Now, first things first, this is the long part and kind of tedious, but you're going to need to cut your string. You're going to want to cut a whole bunch of strips. I do not have a set number, but basically every piece of candy you're hanging up, you're going to also hang on here. So you're going to need to cut a whole bunch of strips, and I would say make them maybe about 2.5 to 3 inches, something like that. Reason being, here you can see, I have this piece here. Oh, I can show you on my nice cutting mat, which if you don't have one of these cutting mats, these are great if you're going to do crafting. So you can see here, this takes up, what do we have? Actually, this is actually closer to 5 inches. Each of these squares is 1 inch. But that doesn't seem quite right. Anyways, but this is a little bit longer. Now what you're going to do is you're going to tie one end of the string around the top of the candy, like so. Ta-da! And then, pretty much, you are going to tie that onto a section of your wreath. And you're just doing a simple overhand knot, which I can show you how to do that in just a moment. And yay! That is step 1. Now I know this might look a little odd right now. It just seems a little droopy hanging there. What is up with that? Reason being, though, is once you fill this all up, because we are filling this whole thing with candy, it's going to make the candy kind of stand out. It's going to look a lot nicer. So I am going to start doing that in just a moment. But in case you are unsure of how to tie a knot, basically you have your string, you make a circle, and you have your short end and your long end. You put the short end on top. Now you're going to take that short end and you're going to carefully tuck that underneath and through the circle you made. At this point, it is kind of like a pretzel, kind of a little bit of a loop, but we have that, and you just pull, 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 and a knot is formed. So that's if you don't know how to make a knot, that's a very simple way. Those are the types of knots I am using for this. So I'm going to get started cutting out many, many strings, and I will meet you up once I have finished that. Now I've cut up a whole bunch of strings, and as you saw, I actually wrapped the yarn around my fingers and cut the top and the bottom, or I cut the top and then I cut in the middle, and that just saved me a whole lot of time. But we have many strings. Yay! We might need more than this, but this is what I'm going to start with. So now I am going to then take some of my candies and, apologize, that's crinkly. Aha! And basically, I'm just going to start tying that knot that I showed you around the circle, through the loop, if I could get it. I'm getting the wrapper kind of mixed up with my fingers, and pull it tight. There is another piece of candy ready to put onto this. So I'm actually going to use up all of these strings and tie candy up. After I do that, then I will meet you back and we will start putting that onto our wreath. As you can see, I have put strings on all of our candies, and at least from that one bag. I still have plenty of strings left. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you me tying this bundle on, and I'm going to actually spread it throughout the whole wreath form because I want the candies to be mixed. You can see I have some different flavors, so I want it to be fairly well spread out. This will take a long time. This is a good activity I recommend to do while watching something else, or listening to music, having a nice relaxing time. The end product looks great, but it is a little bit of a tedious process. Or if you have a family, have them work with you. So let's get started. So here you can see our wreath. and I have worked and I put one whole bag of candy on it. It looks pretty good, but obviously we have all this empty space. So we are going to go back and fill in the spots with more candy. I'm going to grab another bag of candy. I'm going to try the strings right on it, put it onto the wreath, and I will meet you back in the next section. Now, you can see I put another bag of candy all around, and our wreath is definitely starting to fill in. There's still way too many gaps for me to be comfortable with this. So I'm going to keep going with this. I'm going to open up another bag of candy. And for me, I have several different kinds of candy here. And I have that strictly so I can have as much on hand as I want. And now these are the types of wrappers I mentioned before. They don't pull apart. They are going to be a little harder to fashion on, but don't worry, you can still absolutely do that. I'm going to do that. I will make a quick note. While I was working on this, I started tying my knots a little bit differently. So rather than doing the overhand knots that I showed you, I started doing what we call a square knot, where basically you go over and tuck one side under. It makes sort of a square shape. I know it's hard to see. And you pull that, and I'm doing that twice. That is just saving me a little bit of time, on working with this. So here I will show you if I go around my wreath form, and like I said, this is a bad wrapper, but I will make it work. And I tie my knot. This is part of why I'm just jumping around rather than showing you this on fast time, because it's a little hard to see. So there's once, and I tie it a second knot right on top. That way I have my candy right there. So I am actually going to go and get another bag of candy to put on here. I will probably come back to my peppermints, but we'll see. It depends if I need to fill in more space or not. And I will meet you back after the next section. So here we are. For me, as far as time frame, I think this has taken me maybe just over an hour, maybe an hour and 15 minutes or so. And that was getting all of this ready, what you've seen here. So we filled in, I put some other candies all around, and there's still quite a few gaps. I want to have this all filled in. So I have more candy. I'm going to keep repeating this process until I get this all filled in to my desired way of doing this. And if you wanted this to follow a specific color scheme, so say you only wanted something like red peppermint candies on here, and then that would also be fine. And you could do this in sections and bunch it real tight and then work your way around. Similarly, if you did not want to use a wire frame like this, if you wanted to use a wreath form that was either foam or looked like maybe holly or other plants, you could get away with doing less, like this amount on here, and this would be perfectly adequate for the season. So I'm going to keep working, get my peppermints on there, and I'll meet you back after I have the next section, the next bag of candy on here. All right, now you can see I added some peppermints, I have some strawberries, I have a whole mishmash of my candies on here. Now I still have more string, and I still have more gaps. If I lift this up, you can see some of the gaps a little bit better. But you can see how the wreath is coming together. So we have the candy is starting to look fuller, look more exciting. So I am going to keep working on this. So I'm going to go through another bag, and I might even do 2 bags, but I will check in at the end of that bag and we'll see where we are. So far, just like I said, as far as work, this has taken me maybe, at this point, maybe about an hour and a half. And I've stopped in between, I've gotten up, gotten a cup of coffee, things like that. So it will go faster if you're just sitting and doing it. And like I said, I would recommend doing this. Watch a movie, cup of cocoa, enjoy the season. So I'm going to keep working, and I will check back with you soon. So now you can see I've added some more candy, and we are certainly getting fuller on here, but I want this to be burstingly full. So I'm going to open up yet another bag of candy and place that around. Now, if you're wondering as far as how I'm placing them, I am doing this. Mine has 3 bars, which are a little hard to see at this point now. We're filling it up. I'm picking either the outside or the inside, and I'm going around I'm doing a candy, like 1 or 2 on each section. And then if I still have more, I start doing the inside and the middle and going through that way. You could, of course, do red, green, however you want, whatever colors you want. Or you could do something like golden and, go from there. This is your chance to be creative. I like it better when it's all mixed in together. But, this is your opportunity to shine, show your creativity. So I'm going to put this bag of candies on our wreath and meet you back after that. Now I'm jumping back on. I have added some of my candy, but I obviously haven't finished. Still a lot to go, and I have this big pile here. However, I have now used up all of my strings, the ones I had cut up from earlier today. So I'm going to take some more, and I think some of you may have seen, but I found that if I used my fingers, spread them a little bit, and wrap the string around a number of times, that's easier and faster than just cutting each individual string. So I'm going to do this, and I'm just wrapping this around until I have a thick pile. I'm going to say probably maybe 20 times wrapping it around. And I am keeping pressure on my fingers so that I don't wrap this too tightly and get strands of yarn that are just too small to work with. And you could do this, as I mentioned earlier, with a different string than yarn. Feel free to use ribbon. Feel free to use, if you happen to have something like kitchen twine, or if you have a different color yarn. It does not have to be red and greenish colors. Those are just the colors that I chose. So now I have a pretty thick amount here. And I'm going to snip the end, set the ball to the side, and I'm going to carefully go in and cut the whole top section. Then I'm going to cut this all in half. And I will use this now to continue going around. So just want to let you know that. So if you run out of your little strips of yarn or string, feel free to cut more. Do it as you need. All right, I'm going to keep adding more candy to our wreath. I'll meet you back after I finish this massive pile. Here we are. I have put on almost that whole bag of candy. I still have a little bit more. So what has happened is I have now started to smush the candy a little bit in some of the sections. So I will show you here on this spot here, there's a little bit of a gap, and that's because I am smushing the candies off to the side. And what I'm doing is I am filling in all of these spaces. For me, I started on the corners of mine. You could, of course, work more in different spots of your wreath from the inside to the outside, but I'm basically trying to make this as full as possible. So as I am tying my candies on, I am trying to find spaces where I basically cannot fit anymore. So it looks like I might be able to get 1, maybe 2 more in this teeny tiny space. And that is great because then, as you can see, which actually I'll lift this up, the corners of my wreath are looking really nice and full. You can hardly see anything through them. And that's what we really want with this wreath. We want it to be burstingly full. So I am going to now at this point, because you have the idea, you've seen what I'm doing, you see how full it's getting, and you've figured out that you might need to cut more string, you might need to get more candy. I will meet you back now at the end after I have finished putting together the whole wreath, because at this point there is nothing more that I am going to be doing other than just filling in all the spots, which after I finish up this little pile of candy, I've got another few more bags because I'm going to want to make each of the sections of my wreath as full of this as possible. It's exciting, and then anytime someone comes to the door, they can have a piece of candy and remember me by something sweet. It's my trick to make people like me more. So I will meet you up at the end after I've finished this whole thing. I hope you have fun working on yours. See you in a bit. And ta-da! Here is my wreath, my lovely square wreath I have put. And I use string on, actually an old clothespin that I have hung up there with some sticky stuff, some 3M stuff. You could, of course, save yourself the trouble and get yourself one of the hangy things that goes over the door to hold your wreath. But that is my wreath, and I hope you enjoyed. Thanks!